Omar joined the Down to Business podcast today, and something that we found out very early on is how he is being a healthcare disruptor. And what I mean by that is essentially there is a big problem, not even just one single problem, but multiple problems with how healthcare is delivered to patients, to medical professionals, you name it. And essentially what Omar and his company accel-EQ are doing is they're trying to come up with as many solutions as possible, not just in Florida, not just on the East Coast, but essentially around the world, anywhere that you can pretty much tap into healthcare, anywhere where there are hospitals, anywhere where there are doctors, anything like that, because essentially there's help that is needed, and Omar and accel-EQ are working to do that. So we chatted all things about that on today's interview, and we were really able to even talk about, growth opportunities, how he's had to kind of reformat and rethink some things, and how he's even had to restructure his team a little bit. But ultimately, through it all, the goal has remained the same. So without further ado, enjoy episode 125, Helping Hands in Healthcare. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Omar Turner. Look, we are rolling. The year is not over yet. The content cannot stop. Even when the year is over, the content will not stop. But just want to obviously, reflect on just some things we've been able to accomplish. I want to give a big shout out to everybody who came out to our latest event at the beginning of the month at the Texan Tea Lounge. Man, we were able to do 3 for 3 in Charlotte. So very happy, very excited. But, nonetheless, I want to continue to up the ante. I want to hit more cities. I want to hit more places, more venues, more interviewees, essentially. So, but until we get that schedule mapped out, until we start, doing some more traveling, I'm going to still keep these virtuals going on and still giving y'all the content. And I'm very excited, to be sitting down with Omar here today. Omar was actually somebody who I was able to come in contact with upon me moving to Tampa, upon me actually working at WeWork. I got to rep the brand, but definitely someone who, from the time I met him, just a very genuine individual, has some of the funniest stories. So definitely tap in with him offline, and he can definitely keep you entertained for quite some time. But no, really just hearing about everything that he was doing in the veteran space, in the healthcare space, and really just mixing the two, bridging the gap, and ultimately making a difference in his life, his company's life, but in so many other different people's lives. I've been able to be at a host of different events now with Omar, hear him speak, hear him talk about what he does essentially, and he's even been able to drop some gems on me. So I know today will be no different. So Omar, how's everything, man? How you doing today?
What's up, man? Everything's good, bro. Just handling life, managing family, managing the business, and trying to provide value to those that I come in contact with. So I'm excited to be here, man.
Absolutely. We love every bit of that, man. We definitely want to soak up all the value that we can. So before we get into it, look, I know that we're going to have some people from your side. I know we're going to have some people from my side, but I also know we're going to have some people tapping in for the very first time along the journey. So can you, one, just tell us a little bit about yourself? And then can you, two, just tell us what brings you on the podcast today?
Yeah, man. So a little bit about myself. So first generation American, Hispanic family, Dominican and Ecuadorian, originally from NYC, originally from New York. Like most New Yorkers, we ended up migrating down here to Tampa, which I call South New York. But you know, really kind of family oriented guy, and try to come down here. And then what ended up happening is I ended up joining the Marine Corps after just being lost for a period of time. I think we all kind of go through that that period of our lives where we don't know who we are, or what we want to do, or what we want to be. So I said, let's just join the hardest core group of guys or men and women that I could be a part of, right? And let's see what happens. And from there, I grew up and kind of matured a little bit more. I still kind of tell everybody I'm still maturing, no matter what age it is. Then once I got out, though, I wanted to do something that was more with kind of like I wanted to stop using my body so much, right? Kicking down doors and sweeping rooms and things. So I ended up getting into the financial services industry, and that kind of morphed me getting into healthcare, helping out employers and hospital systems and patients and medical providers, and had quite a bit of, an eclectic career that ultimately got me to starting accel-EQ, or for short AEQ, right? Um, and now we're looking to essentially change the game within healthcare. We're trying to essentially help medical providers, physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs, whoever's touching a patient, to be able to be far more efficient with their time, so that they can focus on patient care. We can increase access to quality care and ultimately improve patient outcomes. And I think the kind of the second question, why am I here? When you and I were chatting, the things that you're doing here with this show was pretty impressed by, and I think it was pretty simple, right? We had a pretty straightforward conversation, you and we've had multiple of them, right? But that one that led to this is like, hey, if I can get on a place where there's good people that want to be able to learn a little bit more about different individuals and what they're doing, then man, I'm game for it, and let's have that conversation. So that's what brings me here today, is just to kind of share my thoughts, whether it's about life, business, entrepreneurship, being a veteran. That's what I'm here for today.
Got you. I love that. I feel like you definitely caught us up to speed. You took us back a little bit. You gave us but you definitely brought us back to what you're doing now.
You gotta know the context of where I come from
Sure,
and who I am, right?
for sure.
So that you understand, yeah, my train of thought. Yes,
I
sir.
love that. I'm about to start. I'm about to start telling people I don't live in Tampa. I live in South New York now. So yeah, I'm definitely stealing that one from you for sure. But okay, so even going back some years now, even thinking about, like you said, you just went through that period of time. You were lost. You were just probably getting into trouble, just doing crazy things. Was healthcare ever a thought? Did that really just happen as a
Mm.
result of you being in the Marines, and kind of just what was that kind of like that aha moment when you really realized, okay, I want to not only get into this, but I want to get into this to truly make a difference and impact.
Yeah. So when I was younger, I always knew there was something a little bit different as far as like my mindset was concerned, but I kind of felt like I needed to, we'll just call it, I needed to follow the crowd, right? Everybody was like, well, you got to do this, you got to go to school, you got to go, and went that route. But I always struggled. It was never, it wasn't that I wasn't smart enough or anything like that. It was just the fact is that like, I just, uh, I kind of felt like, I'll just go back. Like I felt like I was always just lost, right? I was trying to do what other people told me to do. I did it. It didn't work out, and then I was trying something else. So ultimately, when you're right. I mean, I got in trouble and everything like that, but healthcare was never ever in my thought process whatsoever. At some point in time, I thought I was like, well, I'd like to be a businessman. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what I was going to do. All I knew was like I needed to, hold a briefcase and or carry a briefcase and wear a three-piece suit and run around. And I'm like, I have a meeting that I got to go to. I don't know, things like that. But it was when I got out of the military that I started really kind of seeing quickly how there were a few things that I feel like in this world and in life that will never go away, and that's always going to be um, you know, progressing along, and healthcare was one of them, right? It was finance and healthcare. So when I got into finance, that's the reason why I went into that, doing investment consulting and money management and financial planning and such, and like legitimately not selling like specific products. So it was I ended up figuring out that I was a very strategic thinker, and that I like putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So having done that, then all of a sudden I got a small exposure to healthcare, and that to me, I think I was actually working for a bank at the time, and I got exposure to essentially helping an employer, right, put together their benefits and then really digging into their healthcare plan. And I realized at that moment that there was so much complexity just in that piece, but involving hospital systems and payers and all these other different things that I had, no, I had no exposure to prior to that. That's when it clicked for me. I said, okay, healthcare in some form or fashion is where I'm going to be at, and that's when I started being purposeful and trying to like insert myself either in positions or companies that would help me progress that along.
Got you. I like that a lot. I love always hearing about, a lot of times we develop certain interests, certain passions, just certain hobbies, and it comes from an idea. It comes from some motivation. It comes from a conversation, something we may watch, come across on social media. It doesn't always start as like something that was ingrained in us. Even I think about, some of the things
Hmm.
that I love to do growing up, or you couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to be like a firefighter, like the police officer, or like those norms and things like that. But as we've adapted, as we've, gone through a pandemic, as we've went through a period of time
Hmm.
where remote work and hybrid work is just such a populous industry now, you really never know, and your thoughts and your emotions, you can get swayed either way. So I think the fact that one, you had that kind of like revelation in the sense, or you had that, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to involve myself in. And like you said, you slowly but surely just inserted yourself into places because, I know a lot of people that are in the healthcare industry. I know a lot of people that studied for years on years, went here, did this, did that, took a step back, stopped it. It's a lot that's encompassed into that too. And I think so for me, that's why I'm always trying to get educated on it, because there are so many different like I was reading, one of my fraternity brothers sent me something earlier today. He listed his title out. That was probably the longest title I ever read. I didn't know what it meant. It was all letters after their names. It was just like healthcare is like a very expansive industry. But being able to be in that, being able to make that difference, but being able to make sure that other people are exposed to those resources, I think is really important. And the fact that you hold that so near and dear, man, I love that a lot. So now, fast forward a little bit, moving. Now that you're inserting yourself into these places, now that you're, kind of getting your foot in the door, everything like that, really making a stamp. Where did AEQ come into the mix? Why did you decide to brand yourself? How did that whole process work of really coming to be a business owner, to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think what it well, one is I definitely agree. Like healthcare is a pretty complex space, right? And there's so many facets to it, right? You could be an administrator in a hospital, you can be a physician, you can be, playing a support role, and you can even be in, technology, right? So and there's actually even sales within healthcare, right? It's insane, right? So there's so many components to it, but I think at its core, to start, kind of laying the foundation to your question is, at its core, it's really about helping people to be healthy. I mean, it's as basic as that, right? Is being able to have access to care when you need it, to have quality type of care, so that you know that when you're walking into a facility or having a meeting with a professional, right, that you're going to leave there better off than when you entered. And I really wanted to be a part of that. So when I started, really what happened was that when I started inserting myself into certain companies and positions, someone had told me a long time ago, I asked them, like, how do I progress in my career? Because I really didn't know how to, like, how do I, and the first thing they said to me was, whenever a new project comes up, be the first one to volunteer. Be one of the first ones to volunteer. It better be a new project, a lot of risk, right? Nobody's done it before, at least within the company or anything like that. Take advantage of it, and and go for it. Because what's funny is, like, even within people who maybe aren't meant to be entrepreneurs, want to progress in their career, you still have to take even risk within that corporate setting. So because I did that, I was actually, that's when I started really kind of moving up pretty quickly up in my corporate career, and ultimately led to a place where I was head of special investigations unit for a third party administrator, for a healthcare company. Um, and and what we did was we investigated healthcare fraud. Now, mind you, I've proven that I was strategic, and I knew how to go into different areas and identify what was working, what's not, and this and that. And I did all that good stuff. So they asked me, "Hey, can you evaluate this fraud department?" And when I went there, it was basically nothing. And I said, "We have nothing. There's nothing to evaluate." And then that's when they presented to me, to actually develop it and run it. I actually had to pause for a week. I said, just give me a week. Let me think about it, because it was completely different than my career, before that, or at least so I thought. And contacted a buddy of mine, and he's like, listen, man, you got to stretch yourself and get after it. So that's what I did. And I said, okay, let's do this. And I'm like, worst thing happens is I fall flat on my face and I grow and learn, or whatever it may be, right? So I did when I did that. Fast forward to a couple of years or whatever. Like, when I did that, I realized, I was like, man, I can start something. I can build it up. I can get the right people in place. I can use my strategic thinking and executing on certain initiatives. And that's when it really hit me that, hey, I can do this for myself. But then what ended up happening, to kind of bring it all together, was the culmination of my career and personal experiences led me to to start accel-EQ, because I realized that I couldn't make the difference that I wanted to in the positions that I kept on going after. And what I realized was, that's when it hit me that the reason why I was different was because I was meant to start something on my own. I was meant to go be a leader and kind of trailblaze a particular, area. And then my attraction, and to be quite honest, kind of love within healthcare, which is, uh, some people may call me odd or whatever, but that um, that really just gave me the fuel to say, all right, let's just go do this thing and let's start it. And what I identified was that there was a big gap in within healthcare that really caused a lot of the issues. And that was the fact is that physicians and medical providers were just inundated with a bunch of crap, a bunch of stuff that had nothing to do with, delivering quality care to their patients. And that's when I said, all right, I'm going to seek out to solve that issue. And accel-EQ was born.
Whew, that's a journey. That's a lot. I hear so much in that just because it's not always easy to involve yourself in so many different facets. One of the first things I heard was it's no risk, no reward. And not everybody is always willing to take that risk, to take that step forward, to bet on yourself, to have faith in yourself. I definitely do think that we're living in a time where that's definitely more common, but that's not always easy because like you said, for you, it was, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I fall flat on my face. To somebody else, that could be their worst fear. No,
Mm-hmm.
rejection. It's not things not going their way, losing money, losing relationships, losing connections, anything like that. That could be the reason why somebody doesn't really step into their true calling, into their true purpose. But the fact that for you, you saw a failure as just another lesson, or you saw maybe this just is not it. But you also saw within that, I have a deeper purpose. I have a deeper calling. I want more for this. I'm really drawn to this in a sense. Whereas, I'm not a healthcare expert, not a healthcare professional by any means, but I will be the first to tell you that there are a lot of problems within it. Like you said, I don't think it takes a
Mm-hmm.
rocket scientist to figure that out. But what I do think it takes a rocket scientist to do is to adequately involve themselves in that and try to get to the root of the problem, but also make a difference. Because that's a hell of an effort. That's a lot to do. That's a lot to go on. To the fact that you can, one, call out that there's some things going on here, that things are not right, but two, openly insert yourself to be that problem solver. That's not an
Right.
easy task. That's not an easy feat. So I was doing a little bit of research. Do you know what the first sentence in your LinkedIn bio says?
I have to go back and look at it. It's got to be either healthcare innovator or I have to go back and I did it so
But
long
word for
ago.
word. So this is why we do research, y'all. You said I'm a disruptor in the healthcare industry. I love that. I read
Yeah.
that and I said, wow, like I need to change my bio now on LinkedIn. I need something because for me, I'm all about like why I just pay attention to words, introductions, everything like that. You have a certain amount of time to catch somebody's attention, to reel somebody in, to bring somebody in. One sentence, introduction, 5 seconds, 10-second video. Like you said, we were even talking about the content. People just want to see
Mm-hmm.
quick little content, hear something in the back. For me, reading that, obviously, you have a very extensive LinkedIn profile. You do a lot. You're involved in a lot. You're the man with a plan. But I read that first sentence. I said, well, I want to keep going. I hit about and you see the long paragraph. Everybody's not going to read that paragraph. But I read that first sentence.
Right.
I said, no, disruptor, that's interesting. That's important. So ultimately, like I said, I did a little bit of research. Ultimately, why? Why did why, one, label yourself as that, but two, why be that rocket scientist that I refer to?
Mm-hmm.
Why recognize that you want to make a difference in people's lives? Why take on such a vast problem that almost seems like to some you could lead yourself down a dark hole with no true solution?
Yeah, that's a great question though. And one is I appreciate the research and I appreciate the compliments there. But I think ultimately I'll just get to the point where the fact is that I think someone's North Star or purpose, right, mission in life should be something far greater than themselves. It should never be anything that is achievable. I think it's something that should just be so far out of reach that it's constantly causing you to stretch, right? If you're not stretching, then you're essentially, to me, you're not progressing forward. You're dying, right? It's just the way it works. At least in my mind, right? I can't fathom the notion of I'm happy kind of where I'm at and let me just sit here. Now, there's a ton of people that feel that way. There's nothing on them. Great. Um, you know, love the fact is that you're happy and where you're at. No problem at all. If you're experiencing love, peace, joy, and happiness, then you're winning. For me, I feel I actually get like a sense of like anxiety and stress when I'm not moving forward, right? And I'm changing my language because it used to be if I'm not accomplishing something. And I think we put too much weight on accomplishment versus progression, right? So I think you to your point earlier, right, is like you can fail in something, but that means you tried. Like I can tell you, we can have you and I could sit down, we can have a few drinks, smoke a cigar, or whatever, and we can tell stories all day long because of the fact is that we've tried things, we're doing things, we've gone places, you know what I mean. So I think that I had to sit back one day and say like, hey, listen, I am proud of the man who I've become and that I am still trying to become because of the fact that I've tried things, I've gone through things, I've messed up. I'm an example of what not to do, and I'm also feel like I'm an example of what you should be trying to do. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but so the why is because it's just my purpose, man. Is I got to progress. I got to, my personal mission statement is to be better than I was yesterday. So if that means that there's never this line in the sand is like, hey, I've crossed it, so now I'm done. Let me sit back. I'm sure at some point in time I won't have the stamina anymore to continue as hard as I do, but I'm not concerned about when that's going to be because I'm just going to, just keep at it. So I wanted the other thing though is I think there were some personal experiences that happened in my own life that said, hey, I need to I need to focus my efforts in this. That because of the fact is that it was so big, because of the fact that it's such a complex situation. I mean, just you not being in healthcare can understand and see the issues and the complexities from afar. And then when you are in the business and then you have personal experiences, my father passing away prematurely, my brother not getting the mental health, access to the mental health that he needed, ultimately committing suicide, my wife being um, undiagnosed for 2 years and then misdiagnosed for a whole year, 3 years of just pure suffering physically, right? I mean, imagine the mental toll that takes on an individual who's also a mother and a wife and a friend and a daughter, right? All these different things, all these other responsibilities. Then ultimately finding out that she had cancer, right? Now, thank goodness my wife came out on the other side of that a year and a half, removed from it. But now that just brings a whole other set of issues mentally and emotionally and still even physically because your body changes during that period of time, going through that. For me, it was almost like everything that was happening around me, um, like forced me to continue to stay on that path and not try to find a different journey. So that was a long answer to your question. My apologies.
No, but this is about you and that. So no, as long as it is, but like I said, there's value in that. Somebody else can relate to that. I can relate to that as someone who was misdiagnosed themselves. Now, granted, it didn't take this long, but I know people who were misdiagnosed. I've read stories about families that had to almost cough up an arm and a leg just to get
Mm-hmm.
medical bills, just to get expenses paid, just to have some peace of mind in a sense. Hospitals, any of that stuff. I tell people all the time. I can't stand being in a hospital, near a hospital, parking any because I just know it just brings about that aura, that energy, just
Mm-hmm.
that I'm about to spend a lot of money here. I don't know what's going on, and especially as me, as someone who I'm a very inquisitive individual, but at the same time, when there are topics that I know nothing about, it almost brings a fearfulness in a sense. It's just like, is this doctor on my side? Are
Right.
they really telling? I don't know, because we also see now, especially in the minority community, the distrust in the healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
But it's time and time again of misdiagnosed, coming out of pocket, not being the best resources, not telling me everything that I need to know. And it's not until you get somebody who looks like you or you can resonate with that'll truly break it down for you. And that shouldn't always be the case. But my condolences to you and the family, just because that's a lot. That's a lot going on. That's one, two, out of your control. Things could have went totally different. I know those are conversations that are had, and those are thoughts that are also had as well. But thinking about, I hear such a vast of experience. I hear such a vast of, just things that you went through, things that you had to deal with, things that you were thinking about, things that kind of swayed you and persuaded you in different ways. Would you say with AEQ, would you say with what you're doing currently, do you serve a specific crowd? Or are you just kind of vast under the whole umbrella of healthcare and just making sure that people are getting to what they need to? Are you focused on getting help to specific individuals? Are there people who should be looking to AEQ as like a viable resource, or are you guys kind of just expansive of everyone?
No, I think we're pretty specific. So one is we had like the way that you got to look at it is one is just to kind of give some context to it is when I decided to go out and kind of what really birthed accel-EQ was the fact is that again I'm strategic and you start peeling the layers of the onion back, right, and you start seeing well really at the core of things what's the issue, right? Or at least what's one of them. There's so many, and I understand that. But, the thing that I always go back to is like, if we're distracted from constantly from what we're supposed to be doing to execute, right? So if you are, we'll take athletes, right? So um, an athlete during the season, right? Their focus is, their mental, physical health, their whole health, well being, right? And their job is to execute every time they step, on that field, on that court, to to bring a championship to their team, right? And the thing that they do is they remove all the distractions from them, right? They basically say like, I can't focus on that. I get paid top dollar to do X, Y, Z. And really, if you look at it, is the fact is that I know that's a different caliber, but it's the same thing for us, right? So being an entrepreneur, being an employee, being a father, wife, husband, whatever it may be, and a significant other. Um, when we start getting distracted from being able to execute our purpose, right, it weighs on it essentially creates a domino effect, right? And other things become impacted. It's the same thing within healthcare. Physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs, just nurses, and even the front office staff, their job, their core competency is to ensure that their patients are being well taken care of, right? And that they can, at some point in time, walk away healthier, right? And making sure that we are keeping them healthy as well. And when I started looking at things, that wasn't happening. What was happening was they were constantly distracted by having to deal with insurance reimbursements, having to now have all these regulations I have to document, and I have to go into this. And it's not that these things are wrong, it's in the manner that they're being delivered, and the responsibility that's being placed on these individuals or these teams that distract them from being able to execute at something that is probably one of the most important things in our lives. Because if we don't have health, what do we have then, right? There are people who have had millions and millions of dollars to just give away, and they lose their health. And the thing that they would say is, I want my health back, right? I can make the money, I can do this. And there's health and time that are extremely important. So anyways, so that's when I decided, hey, listen, let's take a look at what we can actually do to help these men and women who are saying, "Hey, listen, I want to be able to help people, with their health, and have them get better or prevent any, any negative health issues they may come up with." And that's when we started saying, okay, well, what are some of the things that they don't need to deal with? It was administration and bureaucratic tasks. So we started leveraging technology, specifically AI and machine learning, to essentially remove that from their burden. They have 50 other things that they have to do. So let's start with that. So our end users are those medical providers, those physicians, those hospital facilities, right, that are saying, hey, listen, we're dealing with too many administrative and bureaucratic tasks. What can we do to simplify or streamline that process? But then we have customers. Our customers are those other digital health companies, other health tech companies that basically say, listen, we're already selling to these medical practices and hospital systems, but we also have all this other competition out there because there's indirect and direct competition. And what can we do to separate ourselves from everybody else? And then also, what can we do to provide more value to our customers who are accel-EQs end users? So now what we've done is we've said, hey, listen, let's now provide our services, our technology to these other health tech companies that already have all these end users, and let's help them to increase revenue and retention. Because then what that does for us is it allows us to execute on our objective in delivering, right, efficient, or solution, or quality solutions to accelerate, right, the efficiency of quality care that way. So again, if you can kind of tell, again, it's a strategic way of getting to exactly where we need to be, right? Because we still have to cut through the noise of this entrepreneurship world, and get to the solution.
I think you were kind of reading my mind with how you ended that question, because that actually is going to segue me into my next question. So you pretty much said, like you said, with anything, with strategy, with critical thinking, with planning, with step by step, comes barriers, comes obstacles, comes things, even expected and unexpected. I was just telling a friend of mine, you always got to expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
Look at how we're living right now. But I would also say too, like you said, that noise, having to eliminate that, having to cut that out, having to minimize it as much as you can. What are some of the what are just some of the barriers that you ran into with getting this up and running? With, like you said, because even as I continue to just hear you explain it and hear you dive into it, one, I understand the name a lot more now. It makes sense why it's accel-EQ, because you're trying to get this done as rapidly but efficiently as possible.
Hmm.
But two, with that, like I said, essentially you're tackling a problem that is global, worldwide, in a sense that some people don't want you to tackle, because
Hmm.
you're shaking the home a little bit. So that's not something that people are just going to let you in, which is why you said that strategy comes in, that planning comes in, tackling and knowing how to maneuver and things like that. So what are some of as you kind of think about really becoming established, really becoming a business owner, stepping into this healthcare industry in general, what are just some of the barriers and obstacles that you ran into, but nonetheless, you're still prevailing, you're still working towards that common goal?
So I think one is like defining what that noise is, right? The noise really is the fact is that there's so many different solutions out there, right? That and everybody's knocking on the door of those providers and facilities and hospital systems and everything to saying, hey, I've got this shiny new widget and you need this in order to to be better at what you do, right? Effectuating quality care for your patients. And really it was one of the obstacles was, okay, so now you're into this new shiny object, right? And now it's like there's so many shiny objects that are out there as well. Can you be shinier? It was, it was kind of like, how can you be louder? How are you going to be so different than everybody else? And it was a real struggle to try to say like, well, like really what is Excel's differentiator, right? What's accel-EQ's differentiator? Why are we so better than some of these other ones out there? Because it's not like we were creating a brand new technology that nobody has ever done before. We're true innovators. We're taking, because the definition of innovation is taking something that exists, inserting something new into it, or just making it better, right? So it's evolving what's already out there, and that's what we are. And when I really understood and listened to that definition or read that definition, that's when I said that's what it is. It's not necessarily about being the shiniest or the loudest. It's about how are you going to cut through the noise, even in a stealth manner. And that's what we've decided to do, is to sit here and say, okay, well, you know, we can try to be as loud as we possibly can. But I think the way that we're going to overcome this obstacle of so much noise and so many other different shiny objects and so many distractions is by taking a specific approach that many people actually kind of fear, right? They fear competition, or they look at competition as that they want to avoid it instead of just, well, let's compete, let's do it. And now it's more of like, hey, I don't even have to compete with you anymore. Why don't you just use us, and we're gonna essentially be able to be successful together. And I feel like that, so that kind of goes to a second obstacle, right? Is the fact is that like there's no more of this partnership or working together. What can we do? It's always me versus you. Um, things like that. And then there's just general other obstacles, right? It was, well, we're building a technology and I'm not independently wealthy, so how do you navigate through all that, right? How do I, I literally just wiped out my entire 401k, my savings, my money that I got even from the VA, from being a veteran, and just taking all that and putting it together and setting it aside and say, okay, this is what I'm going to live off of, and I don't know how long it's going to take me, but let's do that. So it was even my own fear of like, what in the world am I going to do, right? The fear of the unknown, and is anybody going to listen to me, right? Then you start getting into this thing of like, well, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Right, all that good stuff. Um, and how am I going to get people? Then I didn't have a network. That was another obstacle. So all right, so all these things, what I ended up doing is finding solutions to, right? you don't have a lot of money. You know, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, and you know, first generation American here. And but my parents taught me, you know, how to be smart with it, how to use it, and you know, don't repeat the same mistakes that they have, and you know, those different things. And then so again, that kind of starts. How do you be strategic? How do you use a dollar in 5 different ways? Um, you know, but the other thing is, and then I think really what ended up happening is that network issue, that obstacle of being having a network is one is a lot of people don't realize this, and I didn't even realize this, is the fact is that there is a true disparity between the underrepresented, which to me I think is still like just fascinating, like not even fascinating, it's just mind-boggling to me, right? Hispanics, blacks, Asians, whoever, all these other, you know, all these different minority groups that people are calling, or whatever you want to say, is the fact is that they get very little funding, they get very little attention to starting businesses. And I already knew, I was like, listen, starting a business, I have a 90% chance that I'm going to fail in a very short period of time. So I don't need any more statistics, right, to tell me why is it that I'm going to fail. And then, but I think really truly that again, it's kind of like everything kind of points you into a certain direction. I ended up getting accepted into this Visible Hands Latinx Fellowship, right, for Latin entrepreneurs, and I started seeing the numbers. It's like less than 2% of us, you know, get funding. Like that is insane. And when you look at people who are in underrepresented groups, there are a ton of statistics that I won't get into now, but that show that the fact is that we're some pretty damn hard workers, that we've grown up with understanding that you are, you know, you are literally in an unfortunate position of no fault of your own, and you have to work your way out of it. That's just life. So why wouldn't you want to invest in founders that have that mentality, that grew up in that mentality, that have the mentality of, you know, because we have choices to fight or flight, right? We don't ever run away. There's times that you have to kind of pause and walk away, but we don't ever run away. We stand and fight. And those were some other obstacles that it took me a good 3 years to really finally face and say, okay, that's something that I'm going to have to now address. And really what I decided to do is just go hit it head on. So whenever I talk to somebody now or an investor, it's, well, what is your portfolio look like? Do you have anybody with, you know, that doesn't look like the norm, right? Do you have people that, you know, are, wouldn't typically be your, you know, on a piece of paper, your number one choice? You know, what are you guys doing to really kind of break that, break down those barriers? Anyways, so those are some obstacles that I had to face.
I love that was such a unique answer from so many perspectives, but more so because like it was like you were almost learning two things at once. You were learning, you know, how to insert yourself in the healthcare side of things, what the problems were. Once you figure out the problems, then you also have to figure out, you know, the solutions, how we're going to combat these solutions. But you know, it's not just a thing of I know what's wrong, we come up with a solution, we implement it. In a perfect world, yes, that's exactly how it goes. But you know, obviously, we even talked about a host of different obstacles that you ran into, from competition to just having to figure out what's going on, to resources, to network, to everything. So that's the healthcare side. But then you have to learn the business side of things, how to properly establish
Hmm.
AEQ, how to properly make sure, you know, that you're dotting every I and crossing every T and really coming about this in the best way possible, because there are a lot of obstacles that you can run in on that end and your business be null and void. Like you said, you could easily come into this, start this, 90% chance here today, gone tomorrow. That's just a simple fact of life. That's the simple fact of business ownership, entrepreneurship. So the fact that you were kind of chucking and jobbing with both of those at the same time and brought it together and bridged it, man, it's amazing. So I also think about, you know, I hear you reference we a lot, and I know I even say we a lot. I'm a one man band, but I just think about the podcast as a brand in itself.
Right.
So with AEQ, is this something that you're looking to pretty much build, to pretty much, you know, start hitting different locations and everything? What does kind of the team and the setup look like with everything you have going on now?
Yeah. So I have myself, my co-founder, who I'm truly blessed to have as a partner. We have a business development rep, an executive assistant, and I don't even think that's really the right title for her, because she's more of she's I don't know. She just helps organize. She helps support. So it's just there's more to that than anything. And then we did contract out a development team. So for me, it's whoever. Oh, and we also have a marketing expert as well. We kind of just dubbed him the marketing director. But in addition to that, it's the investors, it's the advisors from those investors, right? Like it's just so I think while we don't have most of them, except for myself and my co-founder, are contracted folks, but they're part of the team. Like they have to understand and they have to know us, right? We live in a different world now, and again, I had to learn how to take a dollar and stretch it out, right, or utilize it multiple times. And our philosophy right now, right, is the fact is that like we want to be as efficient as we possibly can, and especially during these economic times. So we have to make sure that we're being smart with our money. But so I say all that just because of the fact is that even if they're not a direct employee of accel-EQ, they're still part of the team. They still represent us, right? We're still exchanging dollars for services. So we want to make sure that they're the right one. So we've had some ups and downs as far as bringing on the right folks. I mean, I have had other folks that were part of the team that we had to let go, and so it causes you to rethink things. But because now we've kind of like gone through, I mean, that's another obstacle, I guess, going back to, is having the wrong team members. But, now that we've kind of gone over that initial, one of those hurdles, and I'm sure it'll be more of that, down the road that we're better prepared to deal with now. But from our perspective, we want to be global. Like it's not even, our I'm starting to now evaluate, maybe not so much, to execute on anything right now, but to evaluate kind of like, well, where's the next location of accel-EQ? Where's the next place where we can be part of a healthcare hub and kind of, go from there. The great news is that, I think Tampa, Florida is a great spot for healthcare, and to get attention elsewhere. But we know that it's not just here in the U.S. that we want to do things with, that we want to be able to actually go in more rural areas overseas in places where they need our technology. I think everywhere needs our technology, but the goal is right now is most likely here, somewhere probably in the Northeast, possibly central kind of area of the U.S., and then just kind of keep on going from there, moving our way over to the West Coast, where there's a lot of healthcare technology or healthcare innovation, and start working with some folks out over there. So that's kind of I'm here on the East Coast, so we're kind of spreading out that way, and then hopefully we can do something fairly soon overseas.
And it's crazy just to hear about that, just because, with each area that you attack, Northeast, Central, West, overseas, different things like that, you're going to get exposed to
Hmm.
new things. You're going to get exposed to, maybe you have to go back to the drawing board for a few things, but essentially technology on West Coast is going to be different from East Coast. Overseas, that's a totally
Hmm.
different conversation. So I'm definitely very excited to see how, with the adaptation, with the flexibility that you guys maintain, just all the success that comes from this, but also just how much you'll truly help people. Because like you said, at this point, you're coming up with solution after solution after solution after solution, just tackling problem after problem after problem, but in different areas and in different places. And like you said, once you implement that technology in there, make any advancements, any enhancements, it can only better serve the people. So I'm so excited, man. I was even just looking at some of the comments and things like that from the live, and this is definitely a very, very, very lucrative tool that you're doing and using. But two, I think it's just, it just takes the conversation to a different place. As I said, I can come on here and definitely give you a host of healthcare problems just
Yeah.
in my life and things that I've gone through, things, people that I know. But the fact that you're seeing it firsthand, you're facing head on, taking it head on, with that possibility that things may not always go your way, that it's AEQ may have to take a step back, get to the drawing board, rethink some things. Like you said, even with the team, that comes with just being a business owner, being an
Right.
entrepreneur, that everybody's not going to fit the vision, or some people only fit for a specific period of time. So I think that that's important, but it's all part of the process. But I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the trajectory. I'm excited that, you taught me, like I said, I knew you was going to come in here and drop some gems, drop some value, really get
Yeah.
into it. But I'm excited for that, and I'm also encouraging. I know a lot of people within the healthcare industry, both vets and non-vets. I'm encouraging y'all to, one, just do some research,
Mhm.
ask some questions, just look into some things. If you can somehow become a part of this or share this resource with somebody who may need it best, that's really
Yeah.
what it's all about here. So before we obviously do the most important thing and tell the people, where to tap in with you, where can they find you and everything like that, and do their necessary research and due diligence, do you feel like there's anything we have not touched on today? Even any last words that you want to leave for other business owners, entrepreneurs out there, veterans,
Mhm.
who have you, civilians, anything like that, people who you just, will be coming across this episode, will have learned some things, will have some more questions,
Yeah. So
anything.
one of the things I probably didn't touch on the most, or that I probably should have early on, was just being a veteran, right? I think there was a period of time in our era early on, or in a period of time in early era, where veterans were coming back from a war, and they were starting businesses left and right. And you saw them be successful, if they were little mom and pop shops. Not everybody's got to try to build a global technology company, right? That's just the path I've chosen. So, and I'm excited about it. But you know, uh, my words for them is, man, go all in on being a veteran. So whether you want to go that corporate route and you want to go work for somebody, or you want to start your own business, I personally believe that veterans probably make some of the best business owners out there because of what we've already been trained, what we've gone through, right? And I just tell them, man, get out of your own way, go all in on being a veteran, right? And like you said, just research, dig, ask questions, right? Those types of things, and you will surprise yourself. The other thing I'll tell them is just be humble and know, humble is knowing that you have that power, that strength, that capabilities, and just kind of reserving a little bit and executing it when you need to. And I think that that's the thing that we have to learn. To be quite honest, I almost think that anybody, whether you're a veteran or not, can utilize that. Right? It's just you don't have to go out there and like shotgun affect everything. Just maybe it's the strategy in me, I guess. Right? Is be strategic and kind of get through it. But the other thing I'll tell you is to everybody else, man, is like within healthcare, like don't ignore things. Like get stuff taken care of. Go take care of yourself, right? Even if it's and one of the things that I feel like we've kind of lost during this pandemic, unfortunately, is, man, that sun, that fresh air, that is actually part of health. That we need that vitamin D. You need to get out and exercise. Don't think that because you sit in front of a computer, all day every day, that you can't get up and walk around and everything like that. And get some exercise in. Get up early if you have to. I don't care, whatever. But make sure you guys are taking care of yourselves. And when you do have to go see a medical provider, hopefully they're utilizing our IntelliCare platform. But tell them, oh man, is that IntelliCare? I heard good stuff about that. So those are kind of, I guess, my parting words.
Absolutely, man. I have to wholeheartedly agree with everything. I feel like there's such a lot of things that you touched on, while they're specific to maybe an industry or maybe a person, they can be universally applied, or universal themes, or just things that we look at what we're involved in currently in our life. Look at what we're doing. Look at how we're moving throughout life. Like you said, be strategic,
Yeah,
do research, go all in on whatever it is, on being a veteran, on being an entrepreneur, on being a business owner, on being a
yeah.
podcast host, whatever you do, go all in on. So most importantly, obviously, well, everything you said was
I
gems and
appreciate
very
it.
important. But for the people, looking to tap in, looking to find you, looking to connect, looking to learn more, looking to even do some of their own research, what are some of the best ways to reach you? What are some of the best ways to find you and tap in with AEQ?
Yeah, on all the social media stuff, like I think I'm on Twitter, Instagram. We're doing some stuff on Facebook, but and LinkedIn. So everything is accel-EQ at accel-EQ Inc. You can always look for me, Omar Fuentes. You'll see me with my logo branded, behind it as well. But I'm pretty heavy on LinkedIn. Trying to do some stuff on Instagram. But yeah, at accel-EQ Inc. or just search for Omar Fuentes. There's not a ton of us out there, so.
All right, y'all, come on, one of a kind, all the way from New York. to we got South New York now, so that's what we need. So yeah, no, Omar, definitely appreciate you. Definitely thank you, man. It's definitely been a pleasure to have been able to connect with you since I started working here. But just to even tap in with you on LinkedIn and just to see the growth, just to even do some of my own research and my own knowledge and my own learning. And then I know even some of the knowledge you imparted on me today that I'm definitely gonna have to run this interview back a few times just because there was a lot in here. But like you said, I definitely just can appreciate the mindset, can appreciate the critical and strategic thinking. And I love the work that AEQ is doing because it's not an easy industry to tackle. It's not easy work to be done out here, but solutions will be found nonetheless. So definitely wishing the best when it comes to expansion, when it comes to building the team, when it comes to that software itself. And to everybody, who continuously taps in with us, shows us love, makes it happen from the events to the giveaways to everything. I thank y'all. I love y'all. This has been another episode of the Down to Business podcast. Here with Tamar Turner.